Welcome to AlexandraTV. I am Alexandra Villarroel Abrego and thank you so much for tuning in. Since we are still in the month of February, I decided that again, this week's video is going to be about love and relationships. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you what are the three main relationship killers that there are out there. Very often we do certain things, we say certain things in relationships, or we act a certain way that ruins our relationships, and we keep on doing these mistakes over and over again. So it's very important to first of all know what they are, and of course to know how you can stop doing these things, which is what I'm going to share with you in today's video. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some examples from my personal life, my personal love life that I've learned from, some situations that happened to me and that I was able to learn from, hoping that by sharing this with you, you will also be able to learn from it. So the first main relationship killer I really think that there is out there is pride. When it comes to love, so many people out there have a lot of pride, which is basically their ego at work. And love and ego don't go together. They don't match together. So whenever there's too much pride in a relationship, whenever there's too much pride in love, very often it ends up killing the relationship. In all of my past relationships, I always had way too much pride. I had too much pride to admit when I was wrong. I always had too much pride to even call the person back, or just to pick up the phone to call them or text them to see how their day was going or what they were doing. My pride and my ego really never let me do that, because I believed in my mind that it was the other person's job, that it was the man's job to do that. But you see, that's pride, and too much pride in a relationship is very unhealthy. When I finally started to heal that broken, because that's really what it was a broken part of myself that was not allowing me to live happy and healthy relationships, is when I met the man that I have in my life right now. At the early stages of our relationships, I remember one night we had an argument, a fight. It wasn't even something important, but I remember that I wanted to be right. And I knew somewhere inside of me that he was right, but I still wanted to be right and I didn't want to be wrong. So I got mad and I told him, you know what, if you ever cared about me, don't ever call me or text me again, you should leave. And so he left. And I remember that night, I really believed that he was going to text me or call me. Why? Because in all of my past relationships, this is what would always happen. I would always be the one to say, don't call me or text me. And 20 minutes later, I had 20 missed calls, really. So I was really expecting that from him, because that's really all I knew. But I remember that night, waiting by the phone, he didn't call me or text me. I remember the day after, he didn't call me or text me. Days went by, weeks went by, and nothing. I was not hearing from him. And for the first time in my life, I had to put my pride to the side and be the one to make the first move. And I contacted him, and everything after that was okay. But I remember asking him, how come you didn't text me or call me? I was expecting you to text me or call me. And he said, well, you know what? You're a grown, mature woman. You asked me to never call you or text you again. And he's like, as much as I care about you, I will respect that decision, because I respect you and I don't want to, go against what you say. And it was really the first time that I saw this kind of respect from a man, because usually in the past I was used to, I was younger, of course, so it was normal, but I was used to the man really pursuing me to a point where it was really harassment, really, and he was not respecting what I wanted, what I was asking from him. So it was really the first time that I did that, to put my pride to the side, to say that it's okay to be wrong sometimes, to say that it's okay for you to make the first move. I think that pride, whenever it comes to relationships and love, is not really necessary. Of course, you have to have pride where you respect yourself and respect the other person, and that's very important. However, you cannot let pride come between you and your partner. If, let's say, you're having an argument and you know that you are, even if you know that you are right, ask yourself, is this really worth it? Is my pride and my ego and my desire to win this argument is really worth this fight between me and my partner? I think that very often in relationships you have to compromise. So the first relationship killer that there is out there, and kills so many relationships, is pride. So make sure you get rid of that. The second relationship killer that there is out there is selfishness. Now, don't get me wrong, this does not mean that you should be selfless. Absolutely not. You should always be self-full, and you should think about yourself first and love yourself first. I always say that, and that's very important. But when it comes to relationships, selfishness, where to a point where you're kind of spoiled, where you always want to get your way, where again, like pride, you never want to be wrong, you always want to be right, where you always want things to go your way, where you have these expectations of what the other person should do, and you don't care about what the other person wants or what the other person thinks of, you just think of yourself. Well, that's unhealthy, and that of course will ruin your relationship. For this one, I could give many examples. I think that for me, being an only child, growing up in a home where I grew up with my mother and my grandparents, and I was kind of always the center of attention, and I grew up with so much love and people always around me. And I remember when I was little, if I wanted to go buy candies at the dep, I would ask my mom if she would say no for money. I would go ask my grandmother, she would say no. Then I would ask my grandfather and he would say yes. So I would always get my way, a way or another. For me, being in relationships later on, of course, being a grown woman, an adult, it was very hard at the beginning to sometimes not get my way, to sometimes not get what I want, to not always be right. It was very, very hard. And in the relationship that I have today, I really learned how to compromise. And very often I had to go to my partner and tell him, you know what, I apologize. I was being very selfish in this situation. I was only thinking about myself and about what I wanted. I am sorry about that. So I think it's very important for you to understand the moments when you are being selfish, the moments when you are just thinking about yourself, not thinking about the other person, not thinking about what they want or think or care for. You just want to get your way. That's not good, and that kills a lot of relationships. So make sure you get rid of that. And finally, the third relationship killer, and this one I talk about it in so many other videos because it's something that will not only ruin your relationships, but it will also ruin you really, and your self-worth and your self-value. So it's so important that you get rid of it. It's insecurities. Insecurities, they show up in many different forms, whether it is when you're jealous, possessive, controlling, when you always want to see what the other person is up to. You're going through their phone, you're going in their email account, you're stalking them on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on all the social media websites. This is why they say really that social media websites, they really ruin your relationships, because it kind of opens the door for people to see what the other person is doing. And then what happens is that sometimes the smallest innocent thing really that meant nothing, like let's say your partner follows or becomes friends with someone, then you start making up stories in your head. Who is that person? How do they know that person? Maybe they're having an affair. And then you start creating all these stories really. Your insecurities create them, and then of course eventually it ruins your relationship. The only way really to get rid of insecurities in your relationships is by trusting the other person. But not only trusting the other person, but also trusting yourself. Trusting that what you bring to the table in this relationship is enough, that you are enough really, and knowing that the other person is smart and mature enough to know that, to realize that, and to see that. Once you know this, and once you know that both of you, of course, are on the same page, insecurities really will no longer come to the surface, because you will know that you two understand what you two bring to the table, and that you wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Basically, you wouldn't want to put that at risk by doing other stupid things, you know, with other people. So that's really the way that you get rid of these insecurities. So I hope that this video helped you understand what the 3 main relationship killers are, and most importantly, how to get rid of them, of course. So that is it for this week. Don't forget, of course, to like, to subscribe, to share the video with all of your friends, and visit my website, AlexandraVillarroel.com, to subscribe to my email list to receive free emails from me every single week. That is it for today. I will see you next week for another Alexandra TV. Bye-bye.